And you're listening to CITR Radio, FM 102, Cable 102, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And it's time right now for the Nardwuar the Human Serviette radio show. And who do we have on the line right now? Hello, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Who are you? Please introduce yourself.
Okay, I am Robert Anton Wilson to my readers, Bob Wilson to my friends, and that old crank to my neighbors.
And you're coming here to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Robert Anton Wilson.
That's right, on the 19th I'll be appearing
at the Vogue Theater.
At the Vogue for Sunrise Entertainment.
Had you been here before? You mentioned the Orpheum. Have you been to the Orpheum before?
I've been to that area. I've spoken in Vancouver and on several of the islands, Salt Creek Island, Victoria Island. I've been there several times. I know that area fairly well, as much as a visitor can.
Robert Anton Wilson, are you a witch?
Was that a witch or a bitch?
A witch, Robert
Witch?
Anton Wilson.
Which kind of witch?
You know, a witch. You know, you did some readings in Victoria. That's kind of like the witching capital of Canada. Victoria, BC is. Are you a witch? Like, did you gravitate there?
I have been a witch. I probably still am a witch.
What have you been doing when you've been witching?
Well, that was part of my period of studying every religion I could and participating in as many of them as possible to learn what I could learn from each of them. And I got a great deal more out of the Discordian Society, actually.
What happened to Timothy Leary's head?
Well, there are various versions of that. The accepted version is that he gave up on cryonics and had his whole body cremated. But there's a myth going around, or a legend, or a rumor, it may be true for all I know, that was all put on to prevent the authorities from interfering with his plans to commit suicide when the cancer got too painful and have his head preserved. And so actually it was only his body that was cremated. The head was preserved secretly. I don't know whether that's true or not. As I say, it's a rumor. There's another rumor going around that the feds have seized his ashes because of the high quality of controlled substances in his ashes, and nobody knows what the street value might be.
So where is Hitler's cock?
Where's what?
Where's Hitler's cock? Is Hitler's cock right with Timothy Leary's head? Where do they hide these things, Robert Anton Wilson? Coming to Vancouver, Tuesday, November 19th at the Vogue. Where do they hide Hitler's cock? Where do they hide Timothy Leary's head?
Well, I don't know where Leary's head is hidden. Hitler's cock, I assume, went up in the bunker with the rest of Hitler.
Robert Anton Wilson, are you a CIA agent?
If I were, I would deny it.
Like, are you an agent of disinformation?
Absolutely. And information.
So how come you haven't been knocked off? Doesn't that lead to the fact that you are a CIA agent, or you're an agent of disinformation, Robert Anton Wilson?
Well, I tell you, Mae Brussel accused me of being an agent of the Rockefeller conspiracy, and I confess that it was true, and that my cellar is stacked high with gold bars that are brought every month by David Rockefeller personally. And I'm sure, and up until her death, she went around showing that letter to people to prove I had confessed. People who want to believe such things are perfectly free to believe them. Woof, woof, woof.
Robert Anton Wilson, you mentioned Mae Brussel. Are you aware of the work of Dave Emery, her kind of protege? Because he does a show here every week, Sunday nights on CITR.
Yeah, he does a show here, too. I listen occasionally. One night he got so tangled in his conspiracy theory that I thought he was accusing the Unification Church of masterminding the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And I asked my wife, is he really saying the Unification Church bombed Pearl Harbor? She said no, but it's almost that tangled.
And he's every Sunday night on CITR Radio, 10 to 12. But you're right here, right now, live on CITR Radio. You are Robert Anton Wilson, aren't you, Robert Anton Wilson?
Well, that's what I claim. Others claim I'm an android that the CIA put in my place after they murdered me. But I claim I'm still Robert Anton Wilson and not an android impersonating Robert Anton Wilson.
Because you died in 1994, didn't you?
Oh, I thought it was 92. I'm not sure, but there was it was all over internet, all the news groups, everybody was discussing my death, and it still goes on. Every now and then somebody revives it. Was it ever really proven that he's alive? And I do a lot of public appearances, but as I say, some people claim that's an android, the CIA program to replace me. And I can't prove that's not true. As a matter of fact, I can't even convince myself because I've read too many Philip K. Dick novels, and he pointed out many times in his science fiction that if you were a perfectly programmed android to replace somebody, you would yourself believe you are that person. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a perfectly programmed android. So how do I know whether I'm the same Robert Anton Wilson who was born in 1932 and not just an android who was substituted for him in 1992 or whenever he died or I died?
So if anybody have any questions for Robert Anton Wilson, it's 822-247-UBC-CITR. We can't link the callers to you, but we can relay their messages to you, Robert. So we can't actually link you can't be on the phone with them, but we can relay their messages. And it's 822-247-UBC-CITR. If anybody would like to have their message relayed to Robert Anton Wilson. And Robert, I'm continually fascinated about Timothy Leary. Was he a CIA agent? Did the CIA supply him with LSD? Dave Emery and Mae Bresso go on all about that book Acid Dreams, and Timothy Leary being part of the CIA, and him supplying getting LSD supplied to him.
Well, I remember once we were both speaking at NYU about virtual reality software and hardware, and some group put out a leaflet outside saying that Leary and I were both CIA agents. And I showed it to Tim because I knew it would amuse him. And he said, gee, I wish this was legal evidence. I could make the CIA pay me for the last 18 years. But if he was an agent, he was really a sucker because he never collected a penny from them.
Robert Anton Wilson, coming Tuesday, November 19th at the Vogue Theater, you really don't believe or deny stuff. You kind of, kind of look in between there, don't you? Like what you believe, it's like you don't believe it, you don't deny it. You believe that somewhere between belief and denial is the truth. Is that true?
Well, my general feeling is that most of the world falls in the category between 100% proven and 100% disproven. We live among millions and millions, or as Carl Sagan would say, billions and billions of maybes, and only a few definite yeses and nos here and there. And they're usually only temporary.
Why should everyone know about William Reich? Who was William Reich? Why should people know about William Reich?
It was Wilhelm, which influenced his psychology profoundly. Imagine growing up in a country with an absolute monarch and having the same name as him and a last name that means state in German, Wilhelm Reich. It was like he was named after the state and the head of the state. He was a psychologist who developed theories so radical that, like Leary, he landed in jail. He fared even worse than Leary. They not only threw him in jail, they burned all of his books, too. He was thrown out of the Psychoanalytical Society for being too Marxist, thrown out of the Communist Party for being too Freudian, thrown out of the Socialist Party for being too anarchistic, thrown out of Sweden for doing the kind of research that made Masters and Johnson famous 20 years later, but he did it 20 years too soon and the world wasn't ready for it. Then he came to this country where he was thrown in jail as a cancer quack for publishing results in which he didn't claim to cure cancer at all, but said it might be useful and it was worthy of further investigation. And anybody who made that many enemies must have had something important to say. I think Reich's books are very important, and I'm glad they're back in print again.
Did he really battle UFOs in the desert with an orgone gun? That's kind of a wild, myth of him. Battling UFOs on the desert with an orgone gun?
He thought he did. That's the stage of his career that's the most controversial part. My personal opinion is that at the very end, Reich did turn paranoid. Somebody who'd been persecuted as persistently as he had for a period of 30 years began to see persecution everywhere, and I think he went over the edge. So he imagined he was being persecuted from outer space as well as from this planet.
Robert Anton Wilson, how could an orgone gun thwart a UFO? What was the idea behind that?
He believed UFOs were some kind of living, he had different theories about the UFOs, but at one point he thought they were some kind of living matter, living energy form that was hostile to orgone, which is the life energy. And it's sort of like the UFOs were sort of like the kind of thing that turns land into deserts and people into old crabs or cranks.
What's so scary about this orgone research? Why were people really scared about this orgone research?
Well, partly it was that if Reich is right, almost every doctor and psychiatrist in the world has got to go back and start over and study Reich and give up their present ideas, which nobody likes to hear. And the other part is his theories are very radical sexually. He believed in extreme sexual freedom, not rampant promiscuity, but extreme right to choose and total abolition of all laws trying to govern people's sexual behavior.
Robert Anton Wilson, who flies UFOs? There's some people like Bill Lynn believe that like Secret Service agents are flying UFOs with stolen Tesla technology. That it isn't actually, aliens. It's actually Tesla technology flying these UFOs, and there's no aliens at all. What do you think about that?
Well, my two favorite theories about UFOs are the Persinger theory. Persinger is a Canadian, lives in Ottawa, a behavioral scientist. That means he doesn't want to be called a psychologist. Persinger says that offers the model that UFOs are energy fluctuations which cause poltergeist disturbances, flying furniture, electrical malfunctions, car motors stalling, televisions going on and off, refrigerators turning on and off, that kind of thing. Strange lights zooming around, and if you get too close, it alters your brain waves and causes you to hallucinate. That theory seems very plausible and accounts for a lot of UFOs, but there's also a theory I like by John Keel, which says they're an intelligent energy form that has, let's say, coexisted with us from the beginning of time and has been playing head games with us. They're the same ones, as Keel sees it, who passed themselves off as angels and demons in the Middle Ages and as dead relatives when spiritualism was popular, and now they're passing themselves off as extraterrestrials. But they're an energy form that is very indifferent to human beings but loves playing games and deceiving us. Those two models make more sense to me than the idea they're all hallucinations or the idea that they are spaceships.
What do you think about Tesla technology? Because this guy, Bill Lynn, believes there's going to be an alien invasion on July 5th, 1998. Do you believe the world is going to end on July 5th, 1998, as the teachings of William Cooper, Robert Anton Wilson have taught us? Do you believe that the aliens are going to come on July 5th, 1988, but it isn't actually aliens, it's actually, the government flying these UFOs, and they're going to round us up?
Well, according to the Church of the Subgenius, it is July 5th, 1998, but it's theXists from Planet X who are coming, and everybody who's tithing 1/10 of their salary every month to the Church of the Subgenius will be picked up in the pleasure ships of the Love Goddess and taken to the planet of immortality, and everybody who is not tithing to the Church of the Subgenius will be destroyed by atomic death rays, and that's known as the rupture. And that theory is just as plausible to me as the one you mentioned.
Because Tesla technology was said by this guy Bill Lynn to force Hitler to World War II. Like Hitler was bribed to enter World War II, and is Hitler dead, Robert Anton Wilson? Is Hitler dead?
Well, he's not. He's around 106 now, and probably fairly harmless. I never heard anybody 106 years old that could do much serious harm.
When did Hitler die?
I think he died in the bunker in 45. I'm sorry, I'm conservative about that issue. I agree with the majority of historians.
So you don't think he was at a World's Fair in Albuquerque in 1967 with Eva Braun?
No, that was Lee Harvey Oswald.
William Cooper also believes. Are you familiar with the teachings of William Cooper?
Oh, yes, I have a 2-hour video by him.
What do you think about him thinking about the driver killing Kennedy?
Oh, I think that's wonderful. He shows that, in this 2-hour video, he shows that about 5 times and keeps insisting if you look closely enough, you'll see it. And I imagine some people actually can see it. I know people who see Masonic symbols on the moon. I know a guy who wrote a whole book about Masonic symbols he found in NASA photos of the moon. And, of course, Jim Garrison had a photo in which you could see an assassin in the bushes on the grassy knoll in Dealey Plaza, who was really the one who shot Kennedy. I can see the guy in the bushes there if I try. I can see the Masonic symbols on the moon. I can even see the face on Mars, although I agree with Professor Finnegan of Trinity College in Dublin, who says the face on Mars is actually Moses Horowitz. Which he's the first artist to be recognized on 2 planets.
You mentioned Robert Anton Wilson, a Canadian guy from Ottawa. A caller phoned in and was wondering, have you ever heard of Wilbur Smith, who pioneered a radio industry in Canada and published a book research?
Yes, I've heard of him, but I don't remember. That was so long ago, I don't remember what I heard of him. But the name suddenly, all I can say is I vaguely recollect something about Wilbur Smith. It's an unforgettable name.
And Robert Anton Wilson, this caller also was curious, and you are Robert Anton Wilson, coming to the Vogue Theater this Tuesday. Well, no, not this Tuesday, 2 weeks Tuesday.
I'm also the author of Illuminatus and Cosmic Trigger, and my latest book is Cosmic Trigger 3, My Life After Death.
And this is what the caller was curious about. He wanted to know the Vatican Freemasonic link, if you could briefly explain that.
Well, back in the 70s, Vatican finances were run by Michele Sindona and Roberto Calvi, who were both members of a conspiracy called P Due, or in English P2, which was made up only of third-degree members of the Grand Orient Lodge of Egyptian Freemasonry. This is pretty weird stuff. They were all Knights of Malta, too, which is very odd because the Knights of Malta take an oath to destroy Freemasonry, and 33rd-degree Freemasons take an oath to destroy the Knights of Malta. But the real head of the thing was Licio Gelli, who was not only a Knight of Malta and a Freemason and pledged to destroy both sides, but he was taking money from the CIA and the KGB. Both of them knew he was a double agent, but both thought he was a valuable asset. So the whole thing is a tangled web of conspiracy and treachery beyond anything in any of the melodramatic novels you ever read. Calvi ended up hanging from a bridge in London. Sindona was poisoned in his cell after being convicted of murdering a bank examiner in Italy, and 55 counts of stock and currency fraud in New York, and were waiting trial on charges of plotting a fascist coup in Italy. And all of this was done with the money in the Vatican Bank and the apparent connivance of Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, who was either up to his neck in corruption along with the others, or was singularly naive and didn't know what the hell was going on in his own bank. I find it hard to believe in anybody who could be as naive as Marcinkus would have to be not to know what was going on. He and Calvi owned about 200 banks that didn't even exist. They were just fictitious entities used to launder drug money. They were part of the loop with the CIA and Ollie North, that came out a little in the 80s and now is suddenly coming out again due to exposés in a California newspaper, the San Jose Mercury.
Robert Anton Wilson, what am I going to do if my dad's a Mason? What am I going to do if I suspect my dad is a Mason? What should I do?
Well, what do you want to do?
Well, how can I spot a Mason? Like, what should I do if my dad's a Mason? What should I do, Robert Anton Wilson?
I wouldn't do anything about it. Ask him if he can join.
How can you spot a Mason? If people out there are wondering what a Mason look like, are there any characteristics you'd like to give out there to listeners out there in Radioland? And of course, these are the opinions of Robert Anton Wilson, coming Tuesday, November 19th to the Vogue Theater. How can people spot Masons?
Well, they all have three eyes. The third eye is generally closed, but if you see somebody whose forehead is very furrowed, it's not worry, it's because they're trying to conceal their third eye.
Why do people always blame the Masons? Like, they have three eyes. Everybody's kind of teasing them. Come on, they're nice guys. Like, Mr. Cunningham on Happy Days wearing a fez. What did he do wrong?
I don't know what as far as I can make out, most of the anti-Masonic propaganda in the world emanates from extremely paranoid right-wing Christians who are paranoid about everybody else, not just the Masons.
Aren't Christians your friends? Don't Christians like Robert Anton Wilson?
Well, I'll tell you, Jean-Paul Sartre said hell is other people. I think that's an extreme view. Other people are often quite nice. To me, hell is Christians and Republicans.
Don't you have any secret fans, though? Any secret president admirers? Like, ever meet Carter at all on his rabbit farm?
No, I never met Carter. I met Al Gore once at the Royal Future Society. He said, this was 1989, he said, I will never run for president again until I'm older. I thought that was the greatest promise I ever heard, since the next day he could have started running for president if he wanted to, as being one day older. Al Gore is a very clever guy.
Is there anybody that's not mad at you?
Yeah, I got thousands and thousands of friends and fans all over the world.
Actually, the promoter is going to be mad at me. The promoter of the gig, Derek, is going to be mad because it is indeed at the Orpheum, not at the Vogue. I'm wrong, Robert Anton Wilson.
It was the Orpheum.
It was. You were right. I was trying to trick you. I'm sorry.
Well, people who try to get tickets will find out. Even if they only heard the beginning, they'll eventually find out it is at the Orpheum.
Maybe we should repeat it three times.
The Orpheum a few more times.
Yeah, five times.
At the Orpheum, November 19th at the Orpheum.
And Orpheum has 6 letters in it, and 6 letters minus 3 equals 5, and 5 times 3 is 33. And you're Robert Anton Wilson, speaking to us live on CITR Radio, coming to the Orpheum, not the Vogue. The Orpheum.
The Orpheum.
Coming to the Orpheum, not this Tuesday anyways, it's next Tuesday, the 19th, at the Orpheum, not at the Vogue. Who's mad at you? Well, I mean, I guess people are mad at me for giving the wrong information out, but is there anybody mad at you? Like, has any Mason, have you done anything to, like, get Masons mad?
No, I've never gotten a nasty letter from a Mason. I've gotten a lot of nasty letters from fundamentalist Christians and from fundamentalist materialists and from Marxists.
Don't you have some quote about a box? Like, it's a box, when you look at it, it's just a box. Don't you have some quote, something to do with that?
What?
Yeah, some quote about a box. There was this, I was looking in the news groups on the internet, and some Christian guy had a quote from you, like he was quoting you. He was quoting Robert Anton Wilson, a fundamentalist Christian.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of them have been plagiarizing me for years without quoting me directly. A lot of them have found the selective passages from my books out of context very useful to them. I don't mind that at all. I regard that as a marvelous joke.
Have you ever snuck into a Masonic lodge and maybe seen a Mason sacrificing a rabbit at all?
I have been in Masonic lodges. I have spoken at Masonic lodges. I have never seen anybody sacrificing a rabbit. I've never seen anybody copulating with a goat. I don't believe any of those legends.
Are you jealous that Masons have secret places to meet, like at Disneyland? Isn't there like a secret place above the Pirates of the Caribbean where they have a little club, the 33 Club, where the Masons hang out? Robert Anton Wilson coming to the Orpheum.
No, I'm glad I'm coming to the Orpheum, but I don't mind people. I think everybody has the right of free association. I'm against forcing people to open their doors and let anybody in. That's where I am most at odds with the liberals in my country who want to break down. I think everybody has the right to associate with who they want to associate with.
But is there a secret club at Disneyland, are you aware, Robert Anton Wilson?
Well, all I know is that above Snow White's castle, Disney is supposed to be cryonically preserved in a special room above Snow White's castle. I have a friend who goes to Disneyland every New Year's Eve and drops acid. And when he reaches the peak, he goes and talks to Mickey Mouse about all of his problems. And Mickey never fails. Mickey always gives him the correct answer to guide him for the next year. He's the only man I know whose God is visible, tangible, and gives clear and unambiguous answers. He's a happy man.
What about Bill Gates?
I wish I had a religion that worked that well.
What about Bill Gates? He's up there too, isn't he?
Well, Bill Gates, you know the joke, God decided to destroy this planet, so he called Boris Yeltsin, Bill Clinton, and Bill Yates and told them, go tell your people you got a week left, and then I wipe everything out. And Clinton got his people together and he said, first the good news, then the bad news. The good news is there is a God. The bad news is we only got a week. Yeltsin called his people together and he said, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is there's a God. The good news is I got a week left. And Bill Gates called his people together and said, there's good news and better news. The good news is God thinks I'm one of the 3 most important people on the planet. And the better news is we don't have to work out all the bugs in Windows 95.
And you're listening to Robert Anton Wilson live here on CITR, and it's time for a few more calls. It's 822-2487-UBC-CITR. If you have any questions you'd like to relay to Robert Anton Wilson, we can't link you to him, but we can ask you your questions. 822-2487-UBC-CITR for Robert Anton Wilson. You are Robert Anton Wilson, aren't you, Robert Anton Wilson?
Unless I'm an android impersonating him.
The Orpheum. What's been going on with space migration, the space migration smile scenario? Has anything new been happening with that?
Well, yeah, there are more and more people who spent time in that space station up there. We're learning more and more about human beings in space. and we're having a lot of Mars probes going off in the near future.
What do you think about those Mars probes going off? You mentioned the face on Mars.
It's Moses Horowitz.
Yeah, the face on Mars earlier. The guys like Richard Hoagland, they believe they're giant cities filled with glass. And the same thing on the moon, that there's glass cities. Well, the glass is broken because there were big skyscrapers. And at the Phobos, that moon of Mars, is actually a giant hollow spaceship. And every time a probe goes near Mars, probes get blown away because they get too close to Phobos. Are you aware of this at all, Robert Anton Wilson?
Yeah, I much prefer Professor Finnegan, who I think really has demonstrated that the face on Mars is Moses Horowitz.
Do you believe that man landed on the moon?
Yeah, Neil Armstrong, a 33rd degree Mason. Isn't that a funny coincidence?
But wasn't the moon landing fake? The moon landing was faked in Area 51. Robert Anton Wilson, don't let us down.
No, it wasn't the moon landing that was faked. It was World War II. World War II never happened. It was a conspiracy between Gandhi, representing the Illuminati on the Earth plane, and Madame Blavatsky, representing the Illuminati on the astral plane. And they put everybody in a deep trance and showed old films of World War I, and everybody thought there was a new World War. That was to scare us into not having any more World Wars. So the revisionists who claim the Holocaust never happened, they only got part of the picture. They're not skeptical enough. Not only did the Holocaust never happen, the whole damn war never happened. There was never a Hitler or a Winston Churchill. It was all faked.
And the opinions expressed are those of Robert Anton Wilson and only Robert Anton Wilson, coming to the Orpheum Theater. Get those fine trade expressions at the Orpheum Theater, Tuesday, November 19th. Robert Anton Wilson, does John Travolta believe that God is a reptile brain directing us from the far side of the galaxy?
No, John Travolta believes that God is a dead man in the middle, buried at the bottom of the Pacific, named L. Ron Hubbard.
But isn't that what the Scientologists believe? That God is a reptile brain directing us from the far side of the galaxy, and they're totally frightened by Prozac? Why are Scientologists so frightened by Prozac, Robert Anton Wilson?
Well, Travolta, every time he wins an award, which he has a distressing habit of doing lately because he's a good actor, he keeps winning awards. Every time he gets up, he thanks L. Ron Hubbard. He doesn't thank the reptile brain at the other side of the galaxy. So I think L. Ron Hubbard is his God.
Did L. Ron Hubbard ever get interviewed by you when you were working with Playboy, Robert Anton Wilson? Did you ever get any contact with L. Ron Hubbard?
No, thank God. I've never had any contact with him, and I've had as little contact as possible with any member of Scientology.
So, Robert Anton Wilson, who will spot the widow's son? What's the new Inquisition? Robert Anton Wilson?
I find some of your questions pretty hard to field. Yeah, talking about Fields, as W.C. Fields said, sometimes you have to take the bull by the tail and look the facts in the face.
Well, since the Vancouver-based X-Files series has been mentioning 23 quite frequently, has this increased your book sales at all?
I won't know until I get my next royalty statement, but I've noticed how much they're borrowing from me, but they're not the only ones. I am the most frequently borrowed from author around, I sometimes suspect.
So you're not a paid critical consultant for X-Files then at all?
No, they just read my books and lift whatever they think they can get away with.
How do you feel about somebody ripping you off like that, like the X-Files? Are they doing a good job ripping you off? Could they do better?
Well, hell, they're not as funny as I am. The only thing that treats these things as humorously as I do in my books is the film Repo Man. That, I think, is much better than it's got everything the X-Files has plus comedy, which I think you could say of my books. They have everything the X-Files has plus comedy.
But you also enjoy Plan 9 from Outer Space, and Ed Wood's wife is from Vancouver.
I didn't know that.
Kathy Wood is from Vancouver. She was originally from Vancouver, BC, Canada.
I love Ed Wood films. They're the only films that get funnier every time you look at them. Even the Three Stooges wear out after a while, but Ed Wood's films you can look at over and over and over, and they get funnier and funnier and funnier.
Robert Anton...
He was a genius without knowing it. He thought he was making horror movies, and he was actually making comedies.
Do you believe that there was a Vancouver connection at all to LSD research via some guy Hammond? Like, what's the Vancouver LSD connection, Robert Anton Wilson? Or what's the when you think of Vancouver, what do you think of? Like, what are the connections? Is there any LSD, Timothy Leary, Hammond connections with Vancouver, Canada? You mentioned Ottawa earlier, Robert Anton Wilson.
Well, usually when I think of Vancouver, I think of the guy who beat me out of my lecture fee. during one of my visits there. But then most of the
Perhaps
people
you'd like to single him out? Who was that?
most of the people there didn't beat me out of my lecture fees, so I try to forget that guy.
And the lecture fee is going to be how much? Oh, it's very reasonable. I think it's $18 or something to go see you at the Orpheum Theater, November 19th. Robert Anton Wilson. Robert Anton Wilson as well. Hugh Hefner's wife is from Vancouver.
Who?
Hugh Hefner's wife, Robert Anton Wilson.
That's right, Kimberly, yeah.
Have you met her at all?
No, but I know her name. I don't know why it's stuck in my head. Kimberly, it's a rather odd name.
Have you been in contact with the Hef at all? What was it like hanging out with them in the 70s? Have you been in much contact with him since then? Did you hang out with him in the 70s when you were an editor at Playboy?
No, I met him 2 or 3 times. The only time he ever said anything that really stuck with me was, "Man, what a crazy shirt." I was wearing a yellow silk shirt at the time. And that's the most intimate communication we ever had together. Sorry.
Did you ever hang at the Playboy Mansion at all? Like, in the hot tub there with James Caan at your side, smoking the nice one?
I visited the mansion a few times, but I never got into the hot tub.
Was James Caan in the hot tub?
I don't know. I went there a few times when Hefner invited all the editors of the magazine to come over to see a new movie before it premiered. And otherwise, I worked at the office and didn't have anything to do with Hefner.
Robert Anton Wilson, have you been inspired by the new Larry Flint story that's going to be coming out? Has that inspired you to write any movies? Are you working on any new movies?
The new Larry Flint story?
Yeah, there's going to be The People versus Larry Flint. It's a new major motion picture.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
Starring Courtney Love and Woody Harrelson.
Well, right now there's a group that has an option on my novel Illuminatus, and they're trying to make a movie, trying to raise the capital to make a movie out of it. And my 2 movie scripts that I wrote in the past, neither of them ever got produced, but they've both been published, so I get a little money out of them that way.
What were they? And what is your required reading list? Another listener phoned up wondering, what is your required reading list? Robert Anton Wilson's recommended reading list. Do you have anything?
Well, as a matter of fact, in the latest issue of my magazine, Trajectories, which is available...
From P.O. Box?
P.O. Box... 700305. That's right. You can leave out the oh hell. P.O. Box 700305, San Jose, California 95170. Send $20 and you get 4 issues. The next issue, I have a recommended reading list, which is not for the greatest books or my favorite books, but the books I wish everybody would read so they'd be more rounded. And the list is, if I can remember it, Ulysses by James Joyce, The Cantos of Ezra Pound, Science and Sanity by Alfred Korzybski, Shakespeare, Ovid, Chaucer, Justine by de Sade, because it raises all the questions nobody can answer. 2 books by Nietzsche, The Antichrist and Twilight of the Idols, The Open Society and Its Enemies by Sir Karl Popper, and Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift.
Winding up here, Robert Anton Wilson, I've heard that isn't George Washington not on the American dollar bill, but instead it's Adam Weishaupt, founder of the Illuminati. Is that true?
Well, there's some evidence for that, and the people who want to know more about that can find the evidence presented in my novel Illuminatus, which is widely available in all the better bookstores.
So no little hint for us just now, if we don't have any bucks, Robert Anton Wilson, winding up here, a little hint between George Washington and Adam Weishaupt, Illuminati?
I prefer people to read the books because I don't get paid for these interviews, but I do get paid when they buy a book.
We're paying for the interview. We're paying to interview you. It's costing us by the hour. Well, winding up here, Robert Anton Wilson, have you heard any good conspiracy theories yet that you haven't written books about so we don't have to charge you to get the answer for it?
Well, my favorite current conspiracy theory is the one that Hoagland is putting forth, that NASA has tons and tons and tons of evidence that there's life on Mars, and they're hiding it all. I can't imagine why they would hide it, and his explanations of why they would hide it don't make much sense to me, but I think that's the most amusing and bizarre conspiracy theory around.
Robert Anton Wilson, can you lastly leave us with something special, the listeners out there in Radioland? Would it be possible to give an indulgence to the listeners out there and make them popes? Please, a little indulgence, just for everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Just for everybody that's listening to this. Robert Anton Wilson is coming Tuesday, November 19th to the Orpheum in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And is there any way you could give an indulgence and make the people that are listening, that have taken the time to listen to this radio show, the Nardwuar the Human Serviette radio show on CITR, FM 102, Cable 102, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. There's the listeners out there. Can you make them popes, please, Robert Anton Wilson?
As a Discordian Pope, I have the authority to make everybody a Pope who hears my voice. If you really, truly want to be a Discordian Pope, just repeat after me: spectacles, testicles, brandy, cigars. You are now absolutely infallible, and excommunicate every other Discordian Pope you meet, because we Discordians must stick apart.
Thank you so much, Robert Anton Wilson, phoning live from California, is it?
Yes, California.
And coming to Vancouver on Tuesday, November 19th, to the Orpheum Theater. Anything else you'd like to add to the people out there in Radioland? Why should people care about Robert Anton Wilson? Why should they care about you? Why should they come to you, go and see you on November 19th?
Well, I'll tell you, sex is not the answer. Sex is the question. Yes is the answer. So come see me.
Great. Thanks so much, Robert Anton Wilson. Right now, we're going to end with a song by Buddy Knox called I Think I'm Going to Kill Myself. So keep on rocking in the free world, Robert Anton Wilson, and doot doodaloot doo. Robert Anton Wilson?
Yes.
Doot doodaloot doo.
Doot doot